The alternative word to apparently.
Oh, I wish.
Seemingly.
Seemingly, thank you. Are we running? We are running, because this is the most important question we've ever had. Synonyms for this bloody word apparently. Yeah, seemingly, thank you. Yeah. If anybody would like to start a collection to buy me a Roger Theosaurus, and then I can look that up. And
Where did it start?
where?
Where did it start? The word.
What?
Somebody must have started using the word.
Apparently.
Well, this is an appearance, I suppose. I think it is a kind of meaningful thing to say in a way. It is a distinction worth making. I can hear the minds coming in to argue with it, but there is something about saying this is an appearance. This is an appearance. It's not necessarily what we take it for. I know
But that's
some
different
people,
from apparent.
yeah, but there's a connection.
What is it?
Well, between something being an appearance and something being apparently real. It is a distinction, you know, language is very tricky. A word that is often used is illusion, that this is a kind of illusion. That's absolutely fine by me, except that most people misunderstand that word and what it means. So it tends to be more confusing, because most people, well, many people take the word illusion simply to mean something that isn't real. If you like, that's imaginary, and that's not what illusion means. An illusion is something that is different to how it appears to be, and that's exactly what this is. It's different to how it appears to be. It appears to exist in time, and it doesn't. It appears to exist in space, and it doesn't. It appears to be solid, and in a way it is, but in a way it isn't. It appears to be solid, but actually it's evanescent. So I think the word appearance is very, you can't say very okay, but I just said it, it's very okay.
It's totally irrelevant what my question is, but I just find apparent really irritating.
Do you? Okay.
Because I think it has more than one meaning, apparent.
Most words do.
No, but almost opposite meanings.
Yeah.
In English language, in
Yeah.
the British language. Yeah. Appearance.
If I was into gratitude, I might say something like, "Well, sit here and be grateful for the irritation." Maybe, I don't know. I said, if I was into gratitude, I might say, "Sit here and be grateful for the irritation." I don't know. You know.
I just think it's an abuse of language, actually.
Oh God. Well, let's celebrate that. We're abusing language.
I'd be
here.
grateful for that.
Great. Okay, how else can we abuse language this afternoon? I have sometimes talked about how the problem. I mean, language is impossible with this, and some speakers go out of their way to make what they're saying as precise as possible, and as a result become, to me, absolutely impossible to listen to. You know, in other words, you know, we can torture language until its joints crack, and we still won't get language close to what we're trying to say here. So why effing bother, is what I say. I don't know if there's still the fact. There used to be a fashion some time ago for people at non-duality meetings to sort of pounce on other people who use personal pronouns like I.
That's right.
I'm picking up when you say, why bother? Well, every speaker I come to uses the word apparently. Why do they bother?
I don't know. Yeah.
Including you. Why
Well,
do
you
bother
can ask
using
me
it?
why I use it. You can't.
Why-
You know, don't ask me why somebody. You know,
Why do you use it then, apparently?
Why do I use it? It just seems to get whatever the hell it is I'm trying to say. It gets closer to that than any other word I can think of. Although I am now thinking of switching to seeming, maybe just so it doesn't irritate you so much. I don't know.
It's a serious
It's interesting why we get kind of, you know, why we sort of home in on certain things. Like I was saying, some people kind of home in on the use of the personal pronoun. Oh no, you shouldn't be using that. It's hopeless. Brendan, it's hopeless. Language is hopeless. It is absolutely hopeless. But if we're going to speak, it's all we've got. If we're going to speak, we don't have to speak, but if we are, it's all we've got.
What would you say, Brendan?
I wouldn't say it, I just wouldn't say it. That's me, anyway.
So, anything else?
Maybe to say that with language we're pointing at what we're trying to talk about, but language is only a signpost, so rather than getting too caught up in the details of the signpost itself, it's like, never mind the signpost, where it's pointing at the indescribable.
I mean, the point is in the word you just used there, it is indescribable. So we are in a hopeless case here, using language, And a lot of people do use that word, pointers, pointing and so forth.
Really, it's pointing from, isn't it? As opposed to pointing at.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, it's arising, isn't
Pointing
it? Language is
towards.
arising.
But you see, just as we're trying to describe the indescribable, we're trying to point towards that which cannot be pointed towards.
Exactly.
We are apparently trying to describe an appearance. It's hopeless. It's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless. Why do we try it? I don't know, but somehow this energy appears trying to express the inexpressible. Trying to F the ineffable, as Alan Watts said.
And also, like, language being a form of communication, it says that, it's implying that there's a person here, a person there, and that I'm trying to communicate something to you through the use of language, so that after I've communicated, then you will know something that previously you didn't know, or but if there's no person doing the communicating, then what's the purpose of language if not to communicate with another person?
Well, we're far worse than all of that. We're trying to perceive the unperceivable. And yet, when the one who's trying to perceive it collapses, there it is. There it is. It's not a perception, but there it is. But it's only there. Well, of course, it's not only there when, it's always there. But it can only be perceived when the one trying to perceive it collapses. Ah! Well, teach me how to do that, Master. Yeah, that will be a good trick. Yeah.
And how often would you say does this happen in meetings to people? I know that's a bit of a weird question, but the dropping away of the self.
Yeah, it's an unanswerable question.
Every time, isn't it?
Is it like contagious somehow?
Yeah. It's very, very natural. Yeah, I know, it's absolutely. This is an infection in a way. Well, I mean, even an interest in this is a kind of dangerous infection that tends to spread from... I mean, obviously a lot of people are immune to this, but it spreads amongst people. Maybe there's a specific set of genes that means you don't have protection against this particular infection, so it can take place. Who knows? It's a total mystery. I was describing before the tea break, in my own case, I came across this very direct communication from Tony a long time ago. Can't remember how many, a long time. I wasn't remotely interested in it. Went away from it, didn't go near it again for 3 years. Then I went near it again after 3 years. I'm completely entrapped by it. It's a mystery like everything else. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could kind of theorise a bit about how the kind of old ways of being and old ways of seeing, old ways of looking for what is obviously a mystery. I mean, life is obviously a mystery. So we could talk about how the old ways of trying to explain that mystery or looking into it have collapsed with the death of, well, maybe it's a bit premature to announce the death of religion, but, you know, certainly it's a bit sick. It's on the hospital ward, at least. So who knows, you know. And also we might notice, I mean, this is all just kind of temporal, you know, time, space, localised stuff, so it doesn't really matter anyway. I mean, who cares? But we could also notice that it's only in certain times and places, as it were, that this kind of communication can take place.
Is it because the world at the moment is so dysfunctional?
Maybe. Maybe. You know, some people say that. Some people say, yeah, well, the old ways of seeing and believing are collapsing in some parts of the world, so it opens up this space. I mean, Margaret Porret, who we were talking about, quoting from earlier, was executed by the church. Now, if Margaret Porret was here today, and who knows, maybe she is, maybe I am the reborn Margaret, who knows, you know. But if Margaret Porret was here today, almost certainly she would not be executed by the church. But if she was saying what she was saying then here today in a different culture, in a different culture today, she would be executed, there's no doubt about that. These meetings that we kind of, you know, troll along to on whatever and drink our tea and eat our biscuits, these meetings could not happen in a great many apparent places on the planet today. They just couldn't, it's obvious. So this kind of freedom that we have, I mean, it's quite special, really.
You did make a comment at the very beginning of the session, before the tea break. I'm trying to recredit because it was good. And I said something about, I think, rather than saying I am unhappy, you just say there's unhappiness here. And you said, well, there's no person for there to be unhappiness to. Did you say something like that? There's no I for unhappiness to relate to or something?
Well, in practice, yeah, that's what we're talking about there. Yeah, there's no person for whom unhappiness happens, but unhappiness happens, or happiness, joy, or whatever. Yeah.
Yet there is no person, there's no I to which that relates to.
Yeah. That's the absolute core of what we're talking about. That's all we're talking about. That's all we're talking about.
No
Whatever's arising is just arising. It seems to be arising, maybe it seems to be arising for an I. But it's not. That's an appearance. That's all we're talking about.
So the sense of a person also arises for nobody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no escape at all. Not that I want to escape.
There's no escape,
No, it's
but
all,
that can
it's all
collapse.
the same thing.
Yeah, but that can collapse.
Yes.
Yeah, that can be seen through however you want to. You know, that's an appearance, and the fact that it's an appearance can appear. It can be seen through. That's all we're talking about. Yeah.
Would you say that when the collapse takes place, that human nature remains human nature?
Depends what you mean by, I mean, character.
I don't know what I mean by human nature, but I'm just asking whether.
All right, well, if you're happy with that phrase, fine. I wouldn't use that phrase, but I would say character. You know, there's a character.
Yeah.
There's a character, a
Okay.
personality, whatever, and that character, you know, when what we're talking about manifests itself, when it's seen, that character may simply go on exactly the same as it before. It may somewhat change. I mean, I've already talked before tea about how neurosis may diminish or even collapse. Well, when neurosis collapses or diminishes, then the character will tend to manifest in a different way, so that it will change in that case. It doesn't have to, but it quite likely that it will.
I suppose when I'm talking about human nature, maybe I'm referring. So I'm not saying what I'm referring. Is a body? Is it a body with a brain?
Yeah, well, the body sense will go on until, presumably, until
You're done.
death, until physical death.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think I heard somebody talk about a natural state.
yeah,
So
definitely.
Is this kind of what you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, it's a common description that's given. This is like a return to the natural state, which you could say maybe is like a state without neurosis, without that neurosis.
Just more relaxed,
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. And I mean, it's often referred to in a way as like a return to the state of a child in a
Yeah.
way. You know. And that, you know, I don't quote from the New Testament very often, but except ye become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. That's it.
And
That's great.
Yeah,
That is. That really gets it. It really does.
And there's so much energy you have because there's no burden of being me.
Yeah.
And having to lift up that me burden is
Yeah.
gone. So there is that much more energy.
It's very tiring being me. It is.
But just like gravity is with us all the time, we don't notice it. We just accept
Yeah.
it. Being me is just like that. It's, you know, you think, oh shit, yeah. It's a tiring. You know, it is just as gravity is. It's just as tiring. Yeah.
We're talking about, I mean, again, I often use this to try to explain, we're talking about a shift from contraction to expansion. But when all we've known consciously is contraction, we can't notice it. We can only notice it by its absence when it's gone. So it's kind of like a shift from this to that, in a way. I mean, these are just metaphors, but that's all we have.
Because I wonder when one uses, you use it as well and other speakers use it, they say it's the loss of the self, yeah. I just wonder whether that freaks out a lot of people when they hear that and
Yeah.
think, well,
Hope so.
there's got to be something there. Like breath and, you know, eating.
Yeah, for freaks out.
But
a hell of a lot of
actually,
people.
and it's almost like they can't imagine, maybe they hear when there's no self, they really think that that's what you mean.
Which is what I mean.
I know, but not in the understanding what they think.
Well, no, because you can't know what that. I mean, you can't know what it is that we seem to have but haven't really got until it's apparently gone. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible.
So the hoo-ha goes.
The hoo-ha goes. I like that. Yeah. Well, we'd hope so. At least some of the hoo-ha, not necessarily all of the hoo-ha, but some of the hoo-ha goes. I think that's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt waiting to be printed. Non-duality when the hoo-ha goes. Yeah.
Is it just the who? Is it just the who part?
The what?
Is it just the who part? Or who part?
That's even better. That's even better for a T-shirt. When the who goes, the hoo-ha goes. I think we may have a little business developing here. That's great.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the back, apparently.
Yeah.
Does this happen bit by bit? Like it can happen a little bit at a time?
Well, I don't think there are any rules.
Okay.
I don't think there are any rules, you know.
Because I wonder just with aging, if as you get older,
Yeah.
it just, yourself gets smaller and smaller.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's the other way. You get more prestige. Yes.
Yeah, or maybe some people go the other way, but I thought maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can go either way, but there we're really talking about, you know, the kind of what I call the barnacles, you know, that accrete around this fictitious thing, but it doesn't feel fictitious, the self. So as we get older, more and more barnacles might accrete on the hull, or they may not.
Crusty.
Yeah, we may become crusty or not, you know. But that's, again, nothing really to do with what we're talking about, because that's personality stuff. Personality is personality, and
And it can happen in a twinkle of an eye.
yes, yeah, Yeah. Very often there's a kind of initial flash of just the seeing of emptiness and nothing else. I'm not sure if we talked about that today. I've talked about it so much on other occasions and written about it, about emptiness and fullness. Very often there can be an initial flash in which just the emptiness of everything is seen. And when I say the emptiness of everything, if we start with the kind of assumption of the common experience that this seems full of me, and that seems full of other, and then the collapse of all of that, so that there's emptiness here and there's emptiness there, so there is no here and there, because there's just emptiness. And that can sometimes just be like, they talk about this in Zen, don't they?
It has to be followed with a smile, doesn't it, really?
Say again?
Has to be followed with a smile.
No, not that. No, often it isn't. Often it's followed with a huge sense of shock and a kind of, what the fuck? I mean, it is the ultimate WTF. That. It may be followed by a smile. I think when it's followed by a smile, that's more commonly, or more likely when the fullness of everything is seen as well. That tends to produce a smile quite often, because it's love. What we were talking about before the coffee break is unconditional love. That tends to produce a smile, at least a smile. But the seeing of emptiness is just emptiness. It's just like, what? This is empty and that's empty, and therefore there is no this and that. They're the same.
Isn't there a verse, when you see the truth at first it will disturb you? I think that's might be in the New Testament.
Yeah.
I can't remember the rest of it. I can't remember the rest. I think it was, when you see the truth at first it will disturb you, and then, I don't know.
Well, I think again, going back to this, this flash of emptiness or whatever, absolutely, I think it can be incredibly disturbing. Yeah. Yeah. It can, it can kind of destroy. It's not just a question that it can destroy so many stories that the mind was running on, but in destroying those stories, whatever's left suddenly realises that those were there as stories for the first time. Because up to that moment, that's just how life is. And then it's, oh shit, it isn't how life is, that was just a set of beliefs which had just collapsed. Pop, 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 like a house of cards. It can be like that. It can be, yeah. Yeah. So there can be a lot of insight after just that kind of initial split second of seeing. If it happens like that, there can be a lot of insight, but it's not like the gaining of any wonderful new truth or knowledge. It's the collapsing of all the mistaken beliefs. Not all of them, but it's the collapsing of mistaken beliefs.
Someone can spend their whole life building this life around those mistaken beliefs,
Yeah.
and then you take away the foundations on which they built their life.
Yeah.
That's why it's so horrifying and so violently opposed, because it's pulling away the very foundations of this being, this sense of self.
Yeah, when I first had that moment, I just felt like, this can't be it. This is not enough. This can't be it. Because
Well, it was,
for me, I had maybe a collapse of certain stories, or seeing through them.
yeah.
And I was like, this can't be it. Looking around, it's not enough.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
So there's
But
some.
then now I don't know. I feel a bit more relaxed about it now. I think when I first saw that, it was really disturbing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, maybe this is enough somehow. I don't know how. Yeah, but I feel like maybe it is enough on some level.
Well, it is really disturbing. And it's a better enough because it's all there is. But that seeing, if what you're talking about in that collapse is that seeing of emptiness, is that what you feel you're talking
I don't know
about?
if it was just an intellectual understanding
Oh, right,
of
okay,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
So it could just be a bit of nihilism or seeing through certain meaning systems.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I had any great experience
yeah.
with
Yeah, there's a kind of connection, but it's not that close a connection, you know. It's, yeah. I think the seeing of emptiness is often extremely disturbing. But seeing the fullness does not tend to be disturbing.
When I was on the train coming here today, there was a moment when it was, well, how it formulated was there was just a feeling of nothing in a tiny way. And what formulated was, there's nothing here for me. For me, that's what I came up. There's nothing, and it was fairly horrible, but not really horrible. And anyhow, the train carried on, and here I am. But it was outside most of what usually goes on, which is interesting. I mean, thank you. You know, it's nice to have a little nudge.
Interesting and accurate, yeah, there's nothing here for me.
Yeah, it was very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, yes.
Yeah. And almost everything that we think that we're motivated to do is because there's something here for me. And this is the one thing where there isn't. There's nothing here for me. And I mean that in both senses. You can take that sentence, there's nothing here for me, and there's nothing here for me. But it's not really, the nothing that's here isn't really here for me. But, you know, it's good enough to say that.
Glimpses occur, don't they? Glimpses occur.
Yes.
It's not particular to a particular person. It's glimpses occur, although that people aren't there. But
Yeah.
it's not uncommon.
No, it's not uncommon. Yeah. Yeah.
And on a more mundane level, we can lose ourselves in work,
Yeah.
can't we? We can. You can get involved in some time and just think, God, is that the time sort of thing, you know? Because
Yeah.
there's a sense of work engages what you and the me sort of.
Yeah.
It's lost, yeah.
Yeah. I think we'd all go stark staring and raving mad if there weren't holidays that it was possible to take from me. And the most obvious holiday that we all take is dreamless sleep.
Oh.
But there's also the kind of holiday we take when we're doing, you know, something that we love doing so much we just get lost in it. Or just not even necessarily that we love, it's just something that we get lost in. Crafts, that kind of thing, for example. Yeah, we have to have holidays from me. They'd have to be much bigger asylums if we couldn't take holidays from me.
I'm interested at something like Margaret Perret. The sense, I imagine that the sense of self dropped for her.
Yeah, seems like.
And then she continued to believe, I think, from my reading, from my understanding, in some of the Christian beliefs, and yet didn't say before she was born. They said, "Oh, I didn't mean that."
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm just fascinated that she was circumscribed by her faith, but her sense of self dropped away, and yet she still was burnt at the stake.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating
Yeah,
and curious.
yeah. I don't know much about her. Julian of Norwich survived.
Mm.
I don't know.
As to that German guy, what was the German guy? He just
Well, Meister Eckhart, he really kind of put one over the church by dying before they could execute him, as far as I understand it. I think they were getting round to executing him, but he died first, so he beat them to it.
I suppose I'm just interested in the strength of the experience, the dropping away of the self. Doesn't lead you to say, oh no, I didn't mean that, so I don't get burnt at the stake. But actually is prepared to get burnt at the stake, despite having the sense of self.
Yeah, I can't comment on
It's mysterious,
that
isn't
case,
it?
yeah.
It was more painful to pretend all the nonsense you've had to do to
Possibly, yeah.
be right.
Not for me, I've got no doubt at all I'd be recanting.
We quite fun standing out in public and saying I'm a sinner. Very hard to
Just a little, that first flick of the cigarette lighter as they come near the faggots that they got me tied to, I'll be
I was only joking.
I'll worship any bloody god you want. It's all the same to me.
That would get you burnt again.
I know that wouldn't wash, would it? Yeah. Shiva, Jehovah, I don't care.
Maybe that sense of self-preservation, like when the ego has this sense of self-preservation, the ego doesn't want to die, and that's why death is so feared, because it's like the loss of this thing that feels so important, like one's identity. But once that sense of a person has dropped away, I just wonder that fear of death, or that sense of self-preservation, if there is no self to preserve, then, because I know a lot of people have described that sort of loss of the fear of death, like there's nothing to fear, because there's no one who is dying. So, yeah.
A big difference, I think, between death and dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The process.
The body, the body-mind organism, let's call it that, the divine puppet, whatever, has a natural desire to preserve itself in a way, a natural desire to avoid pain,
I wonder, like, if the distinction between pleasure and pain is only like an intellectual sort of labelling of, I like this sensation, I don't like that sensation.
Yeah.
And once that labelling by a person is gone, that there is only sensation.
No. No. All you have to do is give me a cup of tea with a spoonful of sugar in it to demonstrate that. Tea without sugar in it, pleasure. Tea with sugar in it, pain. I mean, there is I call it the body-mind mechanism. There is clearly, The reason I'm hesitating is because I'm not wanting to use the word evolutionary because it's time bound, but I can't say what I want to say without it, so what the hell, we'll throw it in. Just pretend that nobody's heard it and I'll cut it out of the recording later. But let's say, you know, there's an evolutionary urge, you know, to preserve the organism, to avoid, you know, pain, which is a sign that damage is being inflicted, if you like. I think, you know, I think there are a lot of spiritual stories, a lot of very holy stories, you know, about the possibility of rising to a very elevated state where I am indeed, or you are indeed, you know, we have transcended beyond pleasure and pain, so it no longer matters whether I have tea with sugar or tea without sugar, you know, or whether I'm drinking a pint of beer or a pint of poison. You know, I mean, there are these wonderful stories of gurus in India who can drink a bucket of poison and it has no, yogis, I mean, and it has no effect. It's lovely, lovely kind of fabulous fairy tales. So it's a very kind of appealing, particularly to the suffering self, that there can be, you know, this going beyond, transcending all those differences, and after all, if all is one, then surely it is all the same, you know, a bucket of poison or a bucket of beer, it's all the same. No, of course it's not. That's not what it, that's what I'd say anyway. But we love these very, very noble stories, and in a way the more, I mean, if we're spiritually inclined, maybe, if we have a kind of ascetic spiritual sort of personality, we love these kinds of stories. They're so attractive. I've told the story many times about the devotee, well, the would-be devotee in the, you know, up on the top of the cliff top where the guru with his disciples is, and the would-be devotee says, take me to be your devotee, and the guru keeps refusing and says, no, you're not worthy of me. And eventually the devotee, would-be devotee, says, well, if you don't take me, I'm going to jump off this cliff and kill myself. And the guru just says, oh, well, go ahead, I don't care. So the aspiring devotee rushes to the edge of the cliff and hurls himself off the cliff and is dashed to death at the bottom of the cliff, at which point the guru says to some of his disciples, go and bring the body of that young man, and they carry the broken corpse of the young man up, and the guru chants some mantras and breathes over him, and the young man comes back to life. You must be able to see where this story is going, surely. I mean, if he didn't come back to life, it would be a very disappointing story. We would have no point to it whatsoever, other than don't throw yourself off cliffs when gurus won't take you as their devotees. So he brings the young man back to life and heals him and says, now you can be my devotee, for now you have demonstrated that you are worthy, because you seek enlightenment more than life itself. To which I gloss this story. I can't remember where it's from some guru tradition. But the only real gloss I can think to add to that, and I hope that that camera is running, is what a fucking load of bollocks. I mean, for God's sake, whoever God is. Sorry, I think that was probably totally out of order. I'll probably have to cut. But, you know, I mean, in a way, it's so beautiful, isn't it? It's so lovely. If you are a spiritual romantic, and believe me, I was a spiritual romantic, that can be so appealing. Yes, you've got to want enlightenment more than life itself. Well, try it. Try it. Try holding your breath. And it'll be fine until you get fed up, and then you see a meeting with another guru and you go and sit with the other guru, and the second guru says you have to give up wanting enlightenment entirely. You cannot possibly attain enlightenment as long as you want to. You know? I mean, it's kind of obvious that we love these, some of us, we love these extreme stories, and the more extreme the better. My guru is so holy that he drank a bucket of poison and it didn't affect him. Well, my guru's so holy that he drank a cup of tea without sugar in it and it didn't affect him. So what do you think of that? I mean...
I suppose gurus meet a need for human need, don't they?
Say again?
I suppose gurus meet a need for that humans have.
Yeah, and humans meet a need that gurus have. Yeah. It's a divine dance. Yeah. I'm looking for a guru to project all my yearnings onto, and the guru's looking for a devotee who wants to project all their yearnings onto them. It's beautiful. It's a divine dance. Yeah.
That's like I was the same as you. I came across Tony, and I thought, thank God he's not a guru.
Yeah.
Because I'd avoided him all my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you know? It's a very simple question. It's not a trick question. So how do you know? It's very easy, because that person is not inviting you to project onto them.
Yes,
Somebody now, I'd be terribly embarrassed if the camera's still running about this, but never mind. But somebody was talking about Mooty earlier, I think before the meeting even started. Thank God, so that has not been recorded on the camera or whatever. But, you know, if ever there was an invitation to projection, that's there. It's just so obvious. I'm making no comment other than that. I'm making no judgment about it. I'm just pointing out the bleeding obvious. It is such an invitation to projection. I think I wrote in one of my many books on non-duality, far, far too many books on non-duality. I should never have written so many. Never follow a guru who won't sit down with you in their local cafe and drink a cup of tea with you. I mean, that's a good starting point. But if we want that invitation to project onto, we'll find it, you know. It doesn't have to be a guru. Could be the wonderful Pope Francis standing on the balcony of the Vatican. What an invitation to projection that is.
Yeah, got that one out.
That one's fine. People I'm not going to go after are the Scientologists. I am not going to be mentioning Tom Cruise. There is something about just seeing that emptiness which is likely to make all these projections collapse. You know, whatever their nature may be, I mean, the nature of who we project onto is going to depend on our character, our personality, but whatever that nature of that projection is, it's likely to just collapse, even in just a split second of seeing emptiness. Because it's all just a passing show. Rising, falling, arising, falling.
It's good to be reminded of that because it's easy to take it seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's one reason that some of us like to sit in meetings like this and talk about it, because it's a reminder, yeah.
Would you say that you initiate action ever, or is it just responses, or how does it work?
Well, there is no one to initiate
No,
action,
right.
so actions arise, actions happen.
So because it's already moving somehow.
Yeah, it's one of the most core statements of this in Buddhism, isn't it? Actions there are, but no doer thereof. That's it. That's it. We could have saved ourselves 3 hours. Actions there are, but no doer thereof. That's what we're talking about. Couldn't be put more clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, we torture ourselves, or should I do this, or should I do that, which is the best course of action.
Yeah, it is kind of torture being a person, some of the time, yeah. Again, you know, that's why we need to go, maybe partly, why we need to go home every night into dreamless sleep, to recover from the torture, yeah. Yeah. Sam Harris put it, there is no rider on the horse. Is he quoting there? I'm not sure. It's lovely, that is. It was, came across this in Sam Harris, and I don't know if it's a quote or not from Buddhism. There is no rider on the horse. It's great, huh?
Are there any ripples, as it were, from the internal dialogue that used to be there about action, or are there still mental habits that are dying down, or just all disappear?
Anything can happen. Yeah, I wouldn't make any assumptions
No,
about
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, anyhow,
No.
does it?
Yeah. I think it's a kind of, you know, it's an obvious question, a question of interest, you know, kind of like, if you, I don't know whether this comes like what's the internal state? Well, there's no rules.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain tendencies, which I've talked about before. There are tendencies for certain kinds of experiences not to continue to arise, like depression and boredom, for example, but there's no rules.
Wouldn't get rid of boredom, would it? That's one of life's pleasures, isn't it?
Well, I'd run away from this in that case, Brendan, because there's no rules, as I keep saying, but I have come across an awful lot of individuals who have said, well, there's no boredom anymore. So if you want to hang on to your boredom, stay away from this.
I'm just thinking about my children. I mean, they have so much time on the internet. They don't have time to be bored, you know. I'm only just talking rubbish, really. But
I'm just reporting, that's all, but it is often said, that there are some experiences, some experiences that are very unlikely to occur when this has been seen. One of them is boredom. Another one is depression. I'm not saying they can't occur, I'm just saying as a matter of fact they don't tend to.
See, boredom is actually good because it inspires you to creativity. You see,
Really?
it pushes you. Yeah.
Well, I think you can join Brendan, you better stay away from it. Maybe, you know, we could start a boredom appreciation group.
It spurs you on, sir.
They do. Well, again, you know, there may be many losses from seeing this and no gains. And one of the losses may be the loss of boredom, so be careful. I wouldn't describe it like that. I'd describe boredom as a kind of stuck energy, you know, that doesn't stir. Actually does the opposite of spurring people along. It kind of, it's something sticky.
Well, that's ennui, isn't it? Ennui? E-N-U-U-I.
Ennui.
Ennui, sorry mate.
Now, I think ennui's okay because it's kind of posh boredom, isn't it? It's boredom with a nice glass of French wine, and perhaps, I don't know, a croque monsieur on the plate. So I'm all for ennui, but not for boredom.
Apathy is another word, isn't it?
Apathy, no, it's apathy.
Oh, well.
Apathy's different to that's it, apathy.
I used to get bored as a kid. It never lasted more than 20 minutes. You do something.
You should do something, yeah.
There's just this state where I don't know what to do. No, it's
Psychology was saying that because the internet is feeding the mind, kids don't get a chance to be bored. They don't get a chance to go off and explore things because there's no spur. They're just being fed things from the internet, which is actually stifling creativity.
Okay, I'm going to stick with what I'm saying about boredom.
Apathy, I think you should say.
But is there less rumination, dwelling on the past, future?
There tends to be, if you talk to individuals, picking my words very very carefully, yeah, there tends to be that, because in a way the reality of the past tends to collapse. I mean, again, I've talked about this, I've written about this before, not in the sense of loss of memory, not in the sense of amnesia, but just in the sense of the solidity of the past as a gripping story tends to collapse, so there tends to be less rumination about it. And the kind of negative feelings that attach to the past, particularly feelings like regret, guilt, bitterness, maybe.
It has no grip.
They tend to lose their grip. That's a good way of putting it, yeah. Yeah. So we could say in presence, which is a word that does have a remarkable kind of connection to present. In presence, there's less energy invested in the past and the future. Which doesn't mean that there's none, and it doesn't mean that, you know, anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. But as a matter of fact, I keep seeming to come across individuals where these things don't tend to happen anymore. Yeah. Yeah. We're on overtime, folks. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll end it there. Thank you.